The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the Science Media Cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good morning once again to all the people who have just tuned in. You're watching the Alternative Dig Talk TV, and as I promised, I already have our guest. The one we had planned to have has had some issues, but of course we have to keep you informed. We have to discuss these issues with you, and Dig Talk TV has never been limited to having such great minds to share with us some on some other topics or some matters of national importance we believe are of value to all of us. My name is Kenneth Rwasimbira, and I've been blessed this morning to host the Executive Director here at the Alternative Digital TV. He is a human rights activist, an author, and also a parent, a very great man that is known on the issues of democracy and peaceful movement building. We are very honored to have you, sir, Mr. Tumuhimbise. Say hi to our viewer on the Mighty Drive.
Thank you, Kenneth, and our viewers. I suppose that whoever is watching will enjoy the show, but most importantly, they are keeping live and safe, but also they are trying their best to ensure that they create a better present and also a better future.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Recently, let's head straight. Recently we had Jazz with Jajja, and some content creators, some young people were invited at Kisozi to talk with the president, to issue out their challenges to the president, or to bring them to his attention. Do you believe the purpose of this Jazz with Jajja was to hear the concerns of these young people, or it had other hidden motives?
I think it depends on how one reads the dynamics. First of all, as someone who did literature, I do not take any word for just its literal meaning. The word jazz, which is spelled as J-A-Z-Z, it's a word that literally stands for a mere, UN, and serious talk. That's why they say, let's have some jazz. So you can never consider it as serious, because you hear it's a jazz. It's not a debate, it's not a discussion. If had it been discussed with the Jajja, it would be a different thing. Jazz, like, it's for fun. Literally to hear, like, it's jazz, chivozi, which in any case, unless otherwise, it's not aimed at creating any specifics in terms of building a nation. And that's in my view, given the title of that discussion, jazz. It has never been anywhere in any serious meeting where you invite people and say, our agenda today, we're going to jazz. So jazzing, it's indeed a mere joke. That's why there is some gentleman, I'm forgetting his name, Mobilize and Atete, something like that. A big disappointment. But then when I echoed onto the meaning of the word jazz, I realized that is so-called Mobilize and Atete was indeed at the peak of the jazz. Simply jazzing and make some bit of fun and go home.
But there are some people who say the president has not been accessible to some of the local people, that he has now to change the procedure to meet the president, at least to allow these young people to come. Even if it may be called jazz, one would say that it is the opportunity for the president to hear the minds of these young people. Couldn't anything positive come out of it, much as it sounds like jazz?
First things first, had it been chat with Jajja, it would carry different meaning. I still remain of the view that since it was simply jazz, it was indeed jazz. Going to the bureaucracy that people go through to meet the president, I think to him that's a big achievement, it's a big success that he created, even when it wasn't as serious. He created a room for young people to meet him and make this discussion very, in fact not a discussion, make the jazz as informal as it was. The yardstick becomes, after he had mentioned, even when they sounded 80% unserious in terms of, as you hear the word jazz, and he literally took them to be serious. That is why even when the mobilizer Atete was making his comedy, the president was like, what is he saying? He paid attention, because I followed the entire discussion from the beginning to the end. The president was serious. The invitees were the opposite. So where he achieves is after he has executed his pledge of 5 billion. When he does so, he will have achieved. But that also goes back to the colleagues that went there, that next time once you get an opportunity like that, go when you have held your head up too reasonable. I remember the gentleman asking them, what do you mean? What are you packaging? What do you have? And it was a battle for them to explain what exactly they do. You would see him rather now as if he was the guest. Now he's the one explaining to them. Oh, so this is now marketing. It's a new trend of branding and promoting Uganda, or marketing Uganda, which showed a weakness onto their end. Those that want the president. Maybe it's now a room. They have it's now a lesson for them to learn that next time you have such an opportunity, you go with your points on your fingertips and explain what, because for crying out loud, if you asked so many here, they are called TikTokers, bloggers, you ask them, what exactly do you do?
Some don't.
Not even some. Majority of them would run away. They can't answer that question.
But do you think they have that freedom to tell or to determine how the conversation will flow, or they are just given scripts to follow? Much as they come to jazz, do you think, in your opinion, they come with free mind, or they are still forced to say what the
it
president
goes
wants
back
to hear?
to understanding what exactly one does. If someone asks, what does DigiTalk do? You will highlight what it does. You do not need to tell a story. You can summarize what DigiTalk does. Meeting the president, and he's the one giving you answers on what he thinks that you do. He was telling them what he believed and thought that they do. And then they're like, yeah, by the way, that's what exactly we do. That means there is a problem. In regards to whether or not they compromised about what they present, I also don't think that that is factual. Because the moment you have an opportunity to hold the microphone, so as long as you're not insulting the president, you're good to go. But when you look at, there's one of them who said, abavu majebali nebe batono. And then what? So that means it changes from being what would have been a composed discussion to now a lobbyism bit of a discussion to grab something. Yeah, and then, because even when he mentioned that he would give their circle, if they make a circle, not in bad faith, but I also want to believe that if majority of them, if not all of them, none of them has an organization. It's individual, so and so, so and so, so and so. So in the event that they are given this money, one wonders, is the money to help them better their work? If it's a yes, a TikToker, what does in specifics, what does a TikToker need to better his work? I think it's a latest phone. What else?
For a good camera, and maybe to lower data prices.
Lower data prices, it's a no for now. That's now for all of us as a country, even digital inclusive. So literally, in fact, not in bad faith, but had I been the president, I would just give each one of them like 2 million to go and buy better phones, and then that one is cleared. What else? Because
but do you think these youth will perceive this as the government's initiative to empower them?
A second, maybe I will answer that question next. Look at all of them and tell me one single individual, for instance, one single individual amongst all of them, the way they were there, that has talked about human rights violations anywhere. Tell me one individual that has talked about maybe some government programs anywhere. That you see, given his track record of his TikToking or his blogging, he has in the recent past highlighted what government does, where young people can access the Myoga, the PDM and the rest. One blogger, all of them, as far as I have watched some of their content, Mavina, you know those things. Now, someone who is Mavinanizing everything has to be taken through a strong orientation to transition from the Mavinalizing his content to now nation building. Yeah, so that alone, I think, and yeah, the president for some reason he may have some bit of goodwill to changing them, but the goodwill that he may have vis-a-vis their bad will, things don't work that way. They will still continue going back even after they have returned. Look at what they were talking about. after their return. Nothing changed. So there is a big problem with your generation, which I certainly don't belong to. I gladly left you there. So the very people who has been discussing issues of national importance, who has been in the recent past talking about tourism in Uganda, has been talking about government programs, has been talking about the potholes, who has been talking about corruption, to mention but a few, so that we now know that they have come on board to help with the president and the coming government towards solving what they mentioned, but also helping them promote what we have at stake. None of them, in my view. They just discuss hips, they discuss bara. There's a gentleman who, not too close to me, he will discuss his belea. I don't know what belea is, but...
I want to ask you this. The government, it seems the president sees it as an attempt to empower young people, especially those who are in content creation, in a way of solving the problem of unemployment, to see how they empower these young people. And now there are also reports saying that these young people, those who were invited at Kisozi to meet the president, perceive it as an opportunity to take money, go eat and just survive. Do you think other young people will learn from this to see that they are empowering the digital creators, or it is just a way of getting access to the president, getting money, you eat, and it stops from there?
I think because of the impoverishment of most of the people, when each one of them gets a golden opportunity to be the president, they have met the treasurer of this country. And therefore, their begging syndrome worsens. That is why a one who, aka Runavi, was like, yes, because he knows that there may not be any other opportunity to do one, to trick the president. But to say, in my view, those gentlemen and few young ladies, if I were in the president's shoes, I would get them, either forcefully, all of them, take them somewhere for an orientation with an expert to teach them about how their work ought to be done, to change their mindset from the promotion of Mavina and the clubs and the Waraji and, of course, insulting people and abusing people. You see, there is a problem in this country that TikTokers consider themselves to be very, very, very important than anyone of us. Yeah? They insult, they abuse. When you look at their wars, it is just very unbecoming of them. So what I thought would be done to better their work would be convening them, get some expert, because the government has capacity, even if it meant hiring a foreign human resource to orient them. Because when it is also sad for every TikToker and the blogger and whoever is on social media to simply say, I am a content creator. Excuse me, what type of content do you create? As in what type of content?
Impact it has.
And what impact does that content bring on to nation building? Most of them, if not all, I can hardly get my phone and watch with my daughter their content. And that's not the content that people want, in my view. In fact, I doubt whether the very colleagues can play their content and what they always do on social media, and they put it onto a big screen and they watch it with their nazaras. Those are mothers-in-law, fathers-in-law, brothers, sisters-in-law, and their daughters and sons. I doubt whether they do. Some of them could be even having, I don't know how many letters on their passwords to bar their children from accessing their phones or even ever know what exactly their content is about. So you don't simply mention content creation. The question should be, what is the content of the content you create? The content of the content, or call it the substance of the content you create.
The core.
What is it? Mavina? No. My taxes shouldn't be given to someone who mentions Mavina 24/7. No, it should be the other way around. Not in bad faith, but these guys should be, if they do change their mindset and now transition from the content they've been creating and add the substance in the content, would be grateful. And then my taxes, which is going to be part of the 5 billion to be given to them, I would be grateful. for them that, yeah, are they promoting Uganda? Are they, not even simply promoting? Where there is a problem, a governance issue, do you raise it? That's why that's what some of the bloggers do outside, some other countries. Not necessarily to simply look on and then you beg the big man and then he gives you the money. In fact, you'll be shocked even upon receiving the money. You see the exact wars and how they can insult one another as soon as they get the money.
Do you think after getting this money, after being empowered, will they still be able to voice out what's not going right in the government, like criticizing the government for any wrong thing done?
Like when have they ever criticized it?
Maybe some have talked about what is not right.
We pray that we hope, we pray. The concern here is it should, empowerment ought to be gradual. It depends on on one's status, and then you say, this is how far I can empower you. This guy's empowerment does not begin with financial empowerment. It begins with the mindset empowerment. Yeah? It begins with mindset empowerment. What do I mean with mindset empowerment? It means the content, the substance in the content they create. That is first. That's the first thing to empower them about. That look, guys, stop obscenity, stop with this. Now we want to move forward as a country, because obscenity amongst bloggers and amongst the TikTokers doesn't build the nation. It rather breaks the nation. None of us would want to see any person talking about obscenity. Yeah. So even do you know they have those bigger words, and they are now common words to be used. Yeah, and that's not the nation wants.
It's what the public wants.
Not what the public wants. Even if they
because those are the people who follow them. They have numbers on social media because of what they say. And some of them were on mainstream, they never had that following. But after changing what they talk about, after talking about these words you're condemning, and now they are gaining followers, they are even invited because of what they say.
Well, now this is where they should take advantage of that. That now that they have the numbers, even sinners have gone to churches and repented and turned into, I have read back the day, I think in Divinity A level, about Saul becoming Paul. So these guys can also transition from the Sauls and become the Pauls, the social media Pauls, than the social media Sauls. Yeah? Changing this nation for the better. I do not think that any one of them who has children would have time to tell their children that, look, come and speak obscenity in the future, that's how you're going to survive. You get? Maybe they were desperate. Maybe. So let us highlight the maybe and the desperation. After you have gotten an opportunity to be changed and empowered, change the content. Because we know for the fact that bad things have so many followers. If someone stripped naked on the street, and the opposite side there is a preacher, he who or she who is naked will have bigger numbers than the preacher across. But what does that mean? The fewer numbers across of the preacher should not lose focus, but rather do it repeatedly and change those obscene and people who are obsessed with obscenity. And that's how the world moves. Because if there were no obscenity amongst what TikTokers do, it means the numbers you're talking about wouldn't follow them. They would have nothing to follow but to follow what is there, which is sense. So you guys, you're the ones who give you determine what to give your audience. Yeah? And gradually, the numbers will grow. And even if they don't grow, those are the numbers you have. Okay, so if the very numbers talking about demanded for the bloggers to run Kampala Road naked, do they now have a marathon of naked people because that's what the numbers want? Most likely no. So in my view, they shouldn't be pushed by the pressure of the viewers, or rather of the followers or whatever it is. If they begin giving them content, it means how evil our nation has become, so he will remain with the holy ones who will follow useful content. Whoever wants to see nudity should undress themselves and look at themselves in the mirrors.
In
Not
their
just
own rooms.
yes, because what are they talking about that these guys don't have? Their followers have the same things that the bloggers talk about. So if you feel you want to be attracted, undress yourself, go to the mirror, look at yourself, and then you're like, wow, this is me.
So
Rather than waiting for a blogger to now do
do
it
you
for you.
think the government should now regulate the online ethics? Should there be regulations as they empower them financially? Do you think the government should now come in to also talk about their ethics and put guidelines on what they have to say?
Surprisingly, to many, I am one person who not fully believes in too much democracy. That's my, I think, and that's my theory. And I think you cannot, sure, all of us ought to have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, but in my view, for some reason, for purposes of also building a nation, there are some things that ought to be kind of checked. Yeah, because you can't wake up in the morning and as early as 8 a.m. someone is speaking those those huge words. Yeah, I think there should be something done. But before you even become so hard onto them, maybe you need to convene them in some big room, talk to them, and even if you sarcastically ask them the way I'm also mentioning here, that okay, Mr. So and so, given the content that you create, if we had a projector here and sat you in the same room with your mother-in-law and your children, would you hold a remote and mute what you're saying, or you would like enjoy and even add them tea? If the answer is honestly, we can't, like, good. If you can't, why do you want our children and parents to watch what you put there? So that's orientation. There should be some bit of orientation in my view.
We are still with Mr. Tumuhimbise Norman and discussing some of the issues that have been making headlines here in the country, and you've heard. We also welcome your opinion regarding these issues. What do you talk of the recent judge with Jajja? Do you think it will benefit all the people, the youth, all the content creators? Do you think the government should find a way of regulating what these people say, to make sure they stick to the ethics of journalism and they do not harm the society through the words they share? And I want us to cross now, Mr. Tumuhimbise, to the issue of the we had the Tade Sita Thanksgiving. The UPDF had that Thanksgiving with their commander-in-chief. He also shared the testimony of how God has protected him, how he saved him from a recent accident. What do you make of that event?
See, that gentleman, of late there is how he is too close, or presumably becoming closer to God. I don't know that it's because of the law of nature, because it's on record that when people grow older, the older one becomes, the closer they become, they get towards God, because for fear of the uncertain after they have died. Very few of them have kept their resilience of not getting too close to God. But of late, when you look at the president and his closeness with God, vis-a-vis 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's very worrying. Going by what he mentioned, that God helped him survive the accident, okay, we could take it. But myself, as someone who an overthinker, I doubt whether it was I doubt, because it is not possible that Mr. Museveni was driving his armored vehicle at a speed of, say, even 60 kilometers per hour in his farm. It's not possible. Mr. Museveni's drive in his farm has always been like a 10, 20 kilometers per hour. Imagine an accident of 10 kilometers per hour with that armored vehicle, because first of all, the armored vehicle that he drives is very, 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 very heavy. So even when it is at 15 kilometers per hour, even if it had knocked whatever, it would not even a tree, it would not even have any impact onto them. But of course, for some reason, even when someone sneezes, like, oh, I thank God for having sneezed properly, because some people have sneezed and their hearts have stopped. But of course, that doesn't take away the fact that God has protected him just right away from the Bush war, and most of his colleagues died. Thanksgiving, in my understanding, it is of course to thank God for any achievements, tangible and maybe non-tangible. Mr. Museveni would be unappreciative of God if he doesn't thanksgive. In fact, if he wasn't busy, he's some gentleman who should be doing Thanksgiving every week, because he has achieved. He has lived longer. He has achieved. I don't know how even to mention it. More than what God should have given, maybe most of the people. Has achieved what the rest of the people should have gotten. But all these blessings, it's as if they have been given to one individual. First of all, longevity. The gentleman has lived, and he mentioned that he's now in bonus. His dear wife has lived long. Many presidents have died early, or they have lost their wives, they have lost their children. So honestly speaking, he has all the reasons to thank God for all the achievements. Additionally, he does not even have any threat in opposition. So why wouldn't he thank God? No threat. The gentleman got his vote. He got his share of 71 or 71 plus.
Aren't we Ugandans supposed to be part of the Thanksgiving? Because he has been the leader for this country for now 40 years. Haven't we benefited enough to also join him and join the UPDF in thanking God?
I think this goes back to his campaign theme of protecting the gains. If Kenneth, you went home and you talked to yourself alone, and you would draw a conclusion on whether or not there are gains you would wish to protect. So if you think that part of his blessings, you have tapped into the blessings, you should celebrate that you have tapped into his blessings. But where you haven't, you wouldn't. Just like a pagan wouldn't hear when a Muslim does his Kwazina, the Allah Akbar, and you invite people. So a Catholic wouldn't mind because he's not part of the community. But that sound or that message communicates to someone who subscribes to Islam. So in this case, the Islam is, or rather are, the benefits.
Those who have gains to protect.
They should thanksgive or give thanks to the mighty. And those that haven't benefited, not to thank God, to question God. Why aren't they also gaining some things? But of course, for me, by and large, he has all the reasons to celebrate. Also, UPDF is doing well, save for all of their fault. Look at their uniforms on point. Look at their conduct. Okay, you look at a UPDF officer, you're like, wow. They even take some juice. I see on the videos. UPDF. My father back in the day. I wish your producer had those photos. Do you know after they had captured the power, those guys were depending on cigarette
and the gun.
You have your gun, cigarette, what else, and booze. Now these gentlemen and ladies earn relatively fair salaries. As far as I know now, I think a general is about 20 or so million, a four-star general. I think the least paid person in UPDF, that's a private, should be around $1 million of Ugandan currency. Back in the day, my father, in 2000, my father was earning 111,000. Yeah, 111 in 2000. Those are 25 years ago. So UPDF has all the reasons to celebrate and have this, have the Thanksgiving, because it has transitioned from the Chigato and Ibisati, torn clothes. No, back in the day, all they had, which was like a privilege, were boots, boots, gum boots. Now it's an army that now someone as a Ugandan would be kind of proud of, save for their faults, because there are some individuals where they have also behaved as hyenas towards Ugandans. But by and large, they have all the reasons to celebrate. They have grown into forces, Air Force, Marine, Mechanized Brigade, then Air Force, then Land Force. So there are so many forces within an umbrella of a force. A reason for which they should celebrate. Coming to this other side, they know where they have also gone wrong. But by and large,
as Ugandans, do you think we also benefit from these privileges they are having? Because they are our brothers. If they are having fair pay, we all benefit. They are protecting this country. They are Uganda's People's Defense Forces. Do you think we should also celebrate with them? Or there is a gap that needs to be filled?
For some reason, you not celebrate loudly, but if Kenneth, you had your brother and he's in UPDF and is earning a 2 or 3 million also, you would know that when you are broke, maybe he can send you a 10K. Because for some reason also parents and relatives had become tired of their brothers and sisters, our sons in UPDF, rather now begging their parents. Yeah. When you look at yeah, that's my dad. That photo was taken 1986 after capturing power. So that cream of NRA was earning, or rather depending on cigarette, and they used to have a shop called Ame Shop. It was in industrial area. So officers, my dad was working in Rubiri before Rubiri was returned to the to the Kabaka. So they would walk from Rubiri and cross to industrial area to do what? To sign for cigarette and some booze, and then you get some either a liter also of booze, beer, and cigarette. Later alone, they transitioned, they kind of developed, and then they were giving them those who had the capacity to have, however fake a house would be, they would give them iron sheets with a mark NRA, and I saw those iron sheets home. And then cooking oil in tins with USA. Then some beans, charcoal, and posho. In fact, now this takes me back to the president's statement of Okore Kidachonka. So NRA between 1986 to 1990 something would be I think mid 90s. They were working for Kidachonka, but now they are working for some Kamani, not Kidachonka. Now they also work for the Kamani. So where you have, we would be proud seeing an officer dressed well. You know, we are not a laughing subject or a laughing matter in the neighborhood. Now we can laugh to the South Sudan army. We can laugh at them because we are far ahead. We can laugh at the Burundian army. Yeah, but back in the day it was horrible. Now, yeah, honestly, I would celebrate them. I would celebrate them because they are doing relatively fair. In the recent budget, they were given some fair increment onto their salaries. Like I mentioned, that a general should be 20 million and so, because it was also unfair for someone who went to the bush, whatever it is, captured power or fought for what they always mention, fought for the peace, they call it, as they call it, and after all those risks, a one who Kenneth does his A level or even goes and gets a weighing scale and gets an equivalent of A level and is earning 30 million in that house called Parliament. Yeah. So I think if it's about sharing, they also deserve to be paid best because they go through a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of risks to ensure that they protect all of us as citizens.
You talked of the welfare of the then army.
Even now the welfare is still lacking. I will sponsor your movement to go to, you don't need to enter Mbuya barracks, just to reach MUBs. You don't need even a binocular. Use your naked eyes. You see what Mbuya has.
Yes, but compared to what you said...
now you see, that gentleman there, my mistake, that was his mansion. In fact, that was his, it was his bungalow in Changwai back in the day. That was 2000. 2000. Yeah, so from that, but of course, a lot is...
Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. Now from that situation to now where we are seeing UPDF now, don't you think, because without even talking about UPDF as an institution, the economy proves to us that the economy is now better than it was then. don't you think that at least that is also a plus to the NRM regime here?
Yeah, very many people, like you have mentioned that, and that question is always brought by you people in media and some other forums to push those of us who want to ask tough questions that we are not appreciative. The point is here. The issue is, if we had, if we knew we were going to, let's say, massacre, and it is known by even those who can trek, like these pilgrims who come to Namugongo, we know that from Kampala to Masaka takes a maximum, let's say a maximum of 8 hours. But we spend a month and we are in Busega. That's for most of us, that's what we question. That fine, we are moving, but the speed at which we are moving isn't in line with what is expected of a normal trekker or a normal person in that journey. That's the only concern that we have. Fine, we have moved, but is what we have moved comparable to the time you have been in power? Because if being in power and you chest thump yourself for making a lot of tax revenue collections, we ask, okay, after I've collected this much, why would you put this huge amount in defense? Why would you put this huge? I was discussing with some elder somewhere, whose name I will not mention for now, and he got close to one of the insiders, very close insider, and this gentleman told my old friend that no, stop your jokes. The national, the security budget in its totality is about 40 or even 50% of your budget. And people do not know. Because once they mention about the defense budget, people run to think it's UPDF alone. But I can assure you, most of the monies and our revenue goes to ESO, RDCs, crime preventers, mentioned but a few. Equipping all those people. And that calls for an interrogation. Why would someone invest all that huge amount? One of the reasons could be it's a fair room for people to swindle the money because it's not questionable, because they also call it classified, meaning its file is kept beneath anyone who's in vicinity. Meaning, what is hidden, you don't know how many rats are going to bite what is hidden. Because if you don't want something to be bitten by rats and cats in someone's house, there should be light. So in the darkness, every rat comes and it bites its chunk. So to say, the question is, we have not progressed as where we ought to be. You look at this road, the Northern Bypass, and now you look at the, in town at, I think it's what, Clock Tower. Honestly speaking, all such infrastructure should have come to us maybe 10 or so years ago. But it's coming now. It's coming now.
But at least it is coming.
And that's the syndrome I have always preached against, the at leastism syndrome. At least we have, at least, no.
Compared to the time, are you not trying to rush the situation or development? Because would you expect it to happen in just 5 years, given the current population and the state of the economy?
But in a country where you lose over close to 10 or so trillion in corruption, and we ask you to curb, to fight the corruption, and that money be put in development, we are not bad. In fact, we are good people. We are reminding you of what you ought to be doing. The concern continues to remain that when you compare the period and the amounts of money you collect from us in terms of taxes vis-a-vis what it does, we ask questions. It's not balancing. If it's the balance sheet, it's not balanced.
The president was talking about the issue of corruption. He said, yes, there is corruption, but solving corruption alone wouldn't put Uganda where Uganda wants to be. That there are other challenges that the NRM government has been working upon. Finding a global market for the products produced here, bringing people into the money economy, that the focus shouldn't be just on corruption. That even if there was no corruption, the country would still not develop as required. That they now have to embark on, now, like what I've talked about, markets and involving money, involving people in the money economy. Do you think corruption has been the root cause for this slow development?
Sadly, of late, the president, I consider him now a believer. He's getting closer to God. But when he mentions that, I now consider him as a dishonest man. Very dishonest. You mention money economy, but the money is being stolen. Money economy. So where did the money come from when the money is being stolen? That's a contradiction. Two, the first problem of Uganda is about money. The second problem of Uganda is money. The third problem of Uganda is money. To mention up to the 10. In fact, the first 10 problems of Uganda is money. So where the first 10 problems of Uganda is money, and even the little that you collect is stolen, that's trouble. And this is how it affects us. Where the president, through URF and the Ministry of Finance, find a deficit in the revenue collection, this is what they do. They will come and tax everything that is even ought to be untaxable. We shouldn't be paying this much on social media, or rather on internet. We should, literally, internet should be free if such monies weren't stolen. We wouldn't be paying taxes on mobile money. Someone gets 10,000, what to send it to the old parent? Remember, this very young man is earning peanuts. So he gets 10,000, what to send it to the mom or the dad? It's taxed. You get? Something in space, it is taxed. And then you ask, okay, what do you invest in as government to call for those taxes? So he is dishonest. Fighting corruption. In fact, if I were to run a presidential campaign at some point, even if I mentioned a 1-point program, what is that? Fighting corruption. Because once you fight corruption, you save a lot of money back. What do you do with that money? You even stop borrowing. Because one of the reasons why we borrow is because we have no money. And it's not that we have no money. We have the money, but the money is being stolen. Even that is not stolen, there is no value for money. So even that we remain with, when it is spent onto a road gets spoiled in a month. And what happens? We go back and rebuild the very road. I hail from Masaka, and I use Rueda, you know. Crooks got a contract, constructed that road. A few years later, the bridge sank in. They are now redoing the work, and not from the money we gave them inter alia. From now, new money, a new budget, not just that alone. Ginger Road, Hoima Road, to mention but a few. So, stopping corruption brings about pure development because the money is there. The money is there, but the money is being stolen, and even the little that is being spent is misspent in terms of quality service. So there is no value for money. So Mr. Museveni is dishonest to say that Uganda's problem cannot just be corruption. In my view, just like so many, it's corruption.
All right. You talked about, while referring to the Thanksgiving, you said President Museveni has a lot of things to thank God for, including that he has no opposition. What do you talk about the opposition? Don't we have opposition in the country?
Of late, we have proposition. Now, when the elections were done, we ceased to have opposition. In my view, we have now proposition. Why we have proposition? It's because most of the colleagues who had even promised to us, to Kukabanja, to demand for their victory, to mention but a few, one of them is on the run. When he chose, I don't know, when he chose or when he was coerced or forced to go on the run, it's as if he ran with the party script of how he would demand the victory. So not even Rubongoya, not even Senyonyi, not even any of them in their hierarchy has access to what the principal had on paper to demand for their victory, or for the victory of all of us. So when that happens, all that we see, colleagues have some of them who have some fair money have already bought 3 also suits, and they are now every morning like, this could be better. Asking their fiancés, what suit do you think would be suitable on my swearing in? Those who don't have money have already like, but I went through. So didn't you give me some cologne? I have to appear very, very, very decent, during our swearing in ceremony. Those are the ones, those that have no money. Then, in their minds now, most of them, is to how do we now win 2031 elections and continue proposing.
So the focus is different.
Unless you don't see things the same way you see them. The focus is too different. They are now proposition. We have proposers, not opposers. No, we no longer have opposition in this. This regime. We have proposition. So the challenge with the proposition, it hardly questions the powers that be, because the more you push so hard to ask those that you would literally oppose, they have their machinery, media, to mention, which will come and say, but you earn our salary. So literally, by and large, I think opposition died a long time. They are now proposing. We have the proposition, which is there to, of course, to also benefit from.
Was that
from the very gains.
Was that death avoidable? Oh, it wasn't avoidable. Maybe there were external forces that killed the opposition.
I think for me, and given some fair experience I've had in the then opposition per se, we ought to have understood on whether or not an election as is, with how it is carried, can bring some bit of change. Had we gotten convinced of that theory, and then we make our highlight or summary of demands, because for crying out loud, the electoral process, with how it happened and with how it has been happening, doesn't seem to bring justice. Because like we have had so many people say, we have had the president complain that he's also rigged. We have had it. Why don't we also help him get justice of not being rigged? And like Mr. Museveni, we are here to help you not to be rigged. If you think MSJ or Bobby Wine or whoever it is also rigged you, all of this that we propose as electoral reforms aim at helping you get justice. And we coerce, if we can't persuade, we coerce him into accepting that. Because the mere fact that the president mentions that he's also rigged, it's to accept that elections are never free and fair. That's what it means. When he says he's rigged, he is saying the elections we participate in are not free and fair. So then you use that statement and push Parliament, or move, legally, and move Parliament towards adopting the electoral reforms. In fact, for me, I was even of the view back in the day that even if it meant giving Mr. Museveni an extra 1 year, rather than having quack elections in 2026, even if we had these elections next year, but when they are organized, I wouldn't mind. Even if we had, even if Parliament had a special law, passed an act immediately or some law that they are extending NRM government for 1 year, but also to be able to work on what Ugandans had been demanding, would be fair than participating in an election and then you have whoever it is going through fraudulently and takes you on for 5 years. We would rather lose a year, have a free and fair election, than going through a fraudulent process and have someone who would take you for 4 years. Unless one is illogical, you'd rather lose a year and secure the 5, rather than working the way it is and then you lose all of the 5.
All right. Now, do you think this opposition, the problem is just
no,
the
proposition?
Do you think the problem is just the elections, or even other aspects? Because if they had lost the elections, why wouldn't they have other alternatives to stay on track? Why would we say that they are normal? Is it just because of the elections, or there are other issues we have to also follow up on?
Some of the issues, or rather, some of the opportunities they should have tapped into would be reorganizing. But reorganizing goes with the resources. I was watching some gentleman on one of the TV shows, and he was like, there is no political party that has, say for NRM, there's no political party that has, say, 100 million in its account, at least as of now. 100 million. Just 100 million. Meaning, a presidential candidate, okay, let me not reduce it to a presidential candidate, a political party that did not have capacity to collect even 40% of its DRA forms. DRA forms to mean declaration forms in this country can hardly organize, can hardly get sober-minded people. Because if you want to get a secretariat that reasons, a think tank of people seated at Kavule, NUP office or DP office or GEMA or ANT, you need to pay them. Those technocrats who think for the party. The likes of Moses Biaruhanga of NRM. He's not a minister. Very powerful, very reasonable, very articulate. But because NRM has the money. On how it gets it, that's secondary. But our colleagues this other side haven't, in my view, haven't exploited. Or even those who would be funding them don't find a reason for which they should fund them. Maybe they look at them as comedians, maybe they look at them as unserious people, so they let them be. And where there are no resources, a political party cannot stand because it needs to facilitate its leadership. I have mentioned about the think tank, the technocrats. Each party deserved to have literally, under normal circumstances, every political party ought to have a cabinet. The same way Mr. Museveni has a cabinet. The same way FDC, ANT, GEMA, NUP ought to have a cabinet. Where Mrs. Janet mentions of education policy, you ask your minister of education to come with a counter policy. Where Kasaija under Minister of Finance brings about a policy, you ask your minister of finance in your political party to come with an alternative policy. What do we have? Every member on his own, God for them all. Yeah. So all that shows unseriousness amongst all of them, but also a call for them, a caution for them to reorganize and avoid the same rhetorics come 2031.
What do you think is the role for the citizens of Uganda in supporting these political parties? Because recently, the president for Alliance for National Transformation, General Mugisha Muntu, said that Ugandans need to understand the importance of funding their own political parties, that they shouldn't look for money from outside Uganda. What do you think is their role in supporting these political parties?
There is what we call ideal, what is ideal and what is practical and achievable. In this country where a one Kenneth is yet to sleep hungry and all that he can think of is to take a command of 2000 because of so many circumstances that led to his impoverishment, that person cannot sacrifice a shilling to any political party. Never. When opposition tried to convince their members to subscribe to their party through procurement of party cards at simply 1,000 shillings, NRM woke up in the morning and said, our membership cards are for free. And to the ill-reasonable or lazy, to the lazy thinkers at a time, they stopped buying party cards and said, "Sure, so such a populace. That's why at some point I'm like, some of these guys, we need to vote on their behalf with how they reason. We need, for instance, I should be voting for a whole sub-county because I know the value of my vote. So such a person, sadly, they are very broke, either because of the government unfavorable conditions and policies, or they are broke because of their intentional laziness, because not every brokenness should be attributed to the government. There are those that have gotten money, even the Myoga money or PDM, and they have gone to wed. I will give an example of I have an auntie, a very, very, very interesting auntie in my village. So my auntie would go to Centenary Bank to get a loan. You process a loan, you know, when they are assessing your ability to pay the loan, they come and ask you if you have a banana plantation. They tell you lean against one of the bananas and they take a photo. And then if you have a pig, they tell you touch its ear. To prove it's yours. They take a photo. If you have a cow, a cattle, they tell you pause.
Near it.
Not just near, you touch it. Because Photoshop hadn't come back in the day. So you touch its horn or its head, they take a photo. So they make your file complete. And they would go back in the day. Centenary Bank used to be in Chotera. Those are like 30 or so kilometers from our village. So she goes there. When the loan is approved, she goes with the border rider. Upon getting the loan, and how much? Maybe around 2 or so million. She passes through Chotera town. First of all, she buys a sack of sugar, 50 kilograms from the loan. Then the very shop, she gets a jerrycan of cooking oil. Remember, maybe this lady has taken like a yam and has even frying.
So this is the only opportunity to have it.
Well, very wonderful. So she gets now a box of soap, a jerrycan of maybe 10 or so liters of cooking oil, rice, like 5 kilograms of beef. In fact, 5 to 10 kilograms. Then she calls her colleagues. Like there is a feast.
Celebrating.
Yeah. So out of the 2 million loan, you find that around 800 or so thousand is spent on Then months later, you find her in running a battle with Centenary Bank. So there are also those people. The same way with these circles that people, the Niginas. I would see the Niginas in our village, and I sat one of the Niginas meeting. It had been held in my home, and I asked my mom. I'm like, okay, when do these people bring maybe 100 or so, maybe they are like 10, 20 family members, rather families, you would find that the total of the amount collected is around $1 million. Terms and conditions of giving you the money when they come onto your home is you prepare them lunch. So guys on that day don't dig. By 10 a.m. they are in your home. So you buy them bread, you buy them sugar, take tea, then buy half of a whole cow in terms of beef. And then matoke, rice, they should have a special meal. So after collecting like 1 million or 3 million, half of the money is more or less spent on what you buy them. Then I was like, I advised them in my village. I said, members should contribute money to feed them, which is not part of what they give the beneficiary. At the end of a month, Baganda called them Evina. Those are, okay, literally I think the word now becomes a circle, so whatever it is. So that's how they literally transitioned from the ill reasoning and financial indiscipline to financial discipline. That so that it stopped looking like after these guys have gone, you count the amount of money you have remained with. Doesn't even make sense. Then you have to now, it's a circle. Now they begin paying. If the other month they gave Kenneth, the other month they will give Norman, then Jeremiah.
So you have to
then
look for money to pay the other person.
When they left in a deficit. But they transitioned. They kind of now, they changed. So even those that are broke, some of them, it's intentional. It's not about about the government. It's about their ignorance, financial ignorance and financial indiscipline. Back now, to sum it up, such a broke citizen can never contribute anything to their political parties.
All right, let's, as we come towards the conclusion, let's head to the issue of the speakership race in Parliament now. We are learning of that President Museveni has endorsed and they have endorsed the current Speaker of Parliament now, Right Honourable Anita Among and the Deputy Speaker, Thomas Tayebwa. There's tension between now this camp, the NRM camp, and Honorable Norbert Mao. What do you have to say about this?
If it is true that the president with SEC have anointed and or seconded AAA and double T and it Among and Thomas Tayebwa, I can assure Mao he shouldn't even dare. But also as someone who goes beyond the surface when it comes to such dynamics, you may find that it could be Mao's strategy to put some bit of pressure and negotiate for a bigger post than maybe prime minister, maybe vice president. But how do I achieve this? Is putting too much pressure, and I'm like, okay, the president ought to sit me down and say, no, get out of this. I'm like, okay, I get out. What is my take? Maybe I will give you this more stronger ministry. It could be. Yeah, you highlight could. It could be a strategy for him. Secondly, he might have chose to do that just to throw his stone into the bush and see how many birds will fly. Now he has known, but also to understand, rather to also deliver the Northern Uganda voice, which I have always mentioned here, that Northern Uganda, like Mao mentioned, and if you do not go by the literal meaning, or rather interpreting when he said they got an accidental speaker, I want to believe it was not meant to ridicule and undermine Anita Among as an individual. He meant, people just took the literal meaning. But if you go by contextual interpretation and the literal meaning, rather, and the golden rule to interpret his statement, he meant that the speaker that is there was literally accidental. Because had Oulanyah not passed on, there is no way how Anita could have become speaker. So that's what he meant. So the hidden meaning therein was to say that the speakership of Oulanyah was Okuloza to sampled. So he thought that as Northern Uganda as a bloc had justifiable reasons to come and reclaim the 4 years also that Oulanyah could have had. Then to the contrary, you hear that lady saying that she has to serve 2 terms, each of 5. So does she mean to say that even after she has finished these 5 years, she will also claim that I haven't finished my 10, they should add me those months that Oulanyah served with, so that they can become that I can complete my 10 years.
Yes.
You get? Because that argument is also invalid. I think for me the issue shouldn't be the sense of entitlement. It should be, what do I have to bring on table as a Speaker of Parliament? This is, I want to take this seat because I think with me we can achieve A, B, and Z. Not, you see, this is very unfair, it's just 10 years. No. In fact, even a Speaker should be voted out of office even if such a Speaker has spent just 1 month, so as long as they don't perform. You get? So the issue is about the substance. What do you bring on table? Not that rhetorical loose statement of I must, we agreed I must go for 10 years. And I watched some NRM historical, and even if I hadn't watched him, it's not anywhere under Uganda's laws, even NRM laws, that speakership will take, whoever takes speakership must spend 10 years. No way. It's a ritual that they have sunk their heads into and tried to promote it, but it's not legally binding. It's not anywhere in the legal documents of NRM, in the legal documents of even if the Parliamentary Elections Act, even if nowhere. So we just hope that, but of course she will face resistance. She may, like I have always said, she's a big spender. She may consider spending lots of money to ensure that she goes through. As a lobbyist, she may continue lobbying, and part of her votes, with no doubt, part of her votes, the opposition will have to vote her.
You have talked about the opposition. Do you see any chance of any opposition candidate becoming the Speaker of Parliament? Not necessarily this term, but if the NRM government is still in power, do you see any possibility of the opposition taking over the speakership position or even being the deputy speaker?
There will never be, because it's not even a matter of logic, it's a matter of fact, that the speaker is voted by majority members of parliament. That's 2/3 of the entire house. But when you look at the 2/3 of the entire house, pure the NRM. Even those that did not come as official NRM flag bearers are NRM leaning. So there is no one crystal likelihood that the opposition will ever take the speakership.
Should we say that Honorable Norbert Mao coming for this position was a miscalculation? Because he knew these things, he knew that it was very difficult for the opposition. We believe he knew it was very difficult for anyone from opposition to take over such a position. Should we say that was a miscalculation? He didn't know what would happen next.
No, Mao, save for his shortcomings, I consider him one of the most brilliant people this country has. And in my view, as far as I have followed Mao, I don't see any move that he has miscalculated. Right from contesting for president in his political party, right from having an MOU, which is the only the opposition political party on record that had an understanding with the two signatures. Two signatures. Museveni appends his signature, Mao appends his signature. Terms and conditions apply, so it is highlighted. Black and white. The rest of the heads in opposition have been just taken as ducks. Ducks, echibata, like, yeah, ducks. Hey, come work together. That's why Museveni wakes up in the morning and he sacks you. He could hardly sack who? Mao. You sack him at your own peril. He will go with it because you have an understanding, which Mr. Museveni can. I mean, Mr. Museveni hardly put his signature on paper. There is no, I mean, he has not had, even having his signature on paper between NRM and LRA, the CON back in the day, it was hard times, very hard. There are no rebels that, save for CON, there are no rebels, for instance, that have come to cross and work with Mr. Museveni, that he has had a written agreement with them. He just convinces them, incorporates them in the army, gives their boss ministry, like Ali Bamuze, like Musa Echweru. Musa Echweru, I think, is the minister for disaster preparedness. He was also a rebel in Eastern Uganda. There were no specific documents. It's just one-on-one, you know, a gentleman's agreement. But for Mao, he had his paper. There are the terms. The president went through, returned it, no, amend here, like, okay, fine, amended, took it back. They signed. So it wasn't a miscalculation. It must have been a calculation plus, first of all, thinking he would rely on their inter-area document and say, okay, now you give me a Minister of Justice, can I also tap into this? We don't know what is likely to come out of the discussion, because I can assure you there is going to be discussion. And once the discussion is had, Mao may withdraw from participating in this race. But he will not simply withdraw. Mao's withdrawal from this race is going to be conditional. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a give and take. I am giving away the contestation. What is my take? Which, by the way, which is also likely, because there is going to be discussion. In fact, what there is going to be, there must be a discussion between the DP, of course, now represented by Mao and Siranda, Secretary General, on the other end, the President. Because it won't make sense for someone who has a working partnership with Mr. Museveni coming to contest Anita Among, who we assume, as the stories now circulate, is endorsed by NRM. It won't make sense. It's like having two twins and you are sending both of them to contest for LOC chairmanship. They are all your children and you send them to contest. Doesn't make sense. They will consider you a very unserious parent for not having been able to talk to your two twins. So Anita Among and Mao become twins, political twins now, to that regard. I will not be surprised if Mao doesn't contest.
But why would Honorable Norbert Mao appear as much of a threat to Anita Among's success, to the extent that the NRM government would agree to maybe give him another position? Is he any of a threat to Honorable Anita Among? Because even if he...
in Uganda so far, there are two regions so far. There are two regions that have what we would call kingpins. Two regions. One of the regions that has a kingpin is Busoga. Busoga, with its mama Kyakoba, bona kyebakola bamukose baali bahude mama Kyakoba abandi kyebakola ki kyebakola. So that's one region. The other region is northern Uganda. Northern Uganda had, by in politics and the power center, they had their kingpins. In the army, they had Colonel Walter Ochola. He was LOC5 chairperson Gulu. He passed on sadly. They had gotten closer to power by having General Paul Lokech. Sadly, he passed on. They have had the Chief Justice, the first one in history, Owinyi Dolo, now retired. They had gotten closer to power by having Jacobo Olanya. Sadly, he passed on. So you look at them as political orphans. So the political orphanage in northern Uganda comes to celebrate the heir Omusika. Out of the orphanage, the political orphanage of losing Olanya, losing Lokech, losing Walter Ochola, now losing also the Chief Justice having retired, their close and current Kando becomes Mao. So that's what makes him special. So in our political view, he represents a whole block, Karuma and beyond. Kind of also stretch slightly a bit to the closer eastern, the Lango sub-region, who have had their political issues politically dominated by UPC. So he becomes their, the successor in their view. He does not come alone. Mao has a very invisible queue behind him from Karuma and beyond. So that's what makes him a rare species to come onto the table with the big man and say, okay, like I have mentioned, now imagine I am a Munyankore by tribe, I am mentioning it that way. What about when he mentions it in his language? Because he has justifiable reasons also. If it's politics with its true meaning, Northern Uganda is a political orphan, and he is a potential political successor of the orphanage in Northern Uganda. So that makes him special. And even when he is convinced to withdraw from the parliamentary race, I can assure you Mao will have a very big position in the coming cabinet.
That takes us direct to the upcoming cabinet now. There are people who lost, NRM members who lost the just concluded parliamentary elections, and now this race also showing that he could be part of the upcoming cabinet. What do you have to say about this upcoming cabinet? What new faces should we expect? Some of those you would say, this one has been very vocal, he is likely to be part of the new government.
Okay, like they say, I may not be that tall like a giraffe to see what the political future has, but that does not qualify me to be a political dwarf. That I'm too short, that I cannot even. I'm not either or. I'm not too tall like a giraffe, neither am I too short like a dwarf. So I can't be a political dwarf. But to say what I anticipate in this coming government, first of all, the lobbying is on. The lobbying is on. As soon as we finished the elections, the lobbying started. Different religions started to lobby. Different regions. I started with religions, started to lobby. Different regions started to lobby. Different tribes started to lobby. And different sectors also started to lobby. What I anticipate rather is that this coming government is going to be a transitional government. A government that is prepared to transition, or rather to bring about the post-Museveni era. Because as he ages, take for instance, if we go by what the Constitution provides, that in the event that the sitting president is incapacitated, the vice president takes charge. That now brings a big question to the president when it comes to appointing his coming vice president. I want to believe that Alupo, I repeat, Jessica, Major, retired, may not come back as vice president. Mr. Museveni may choose someone he thinks that in the event of worst case scenario, this person is trusted enough by a team he will have left. First of all, his family, because Mr. Museveni's family's security and safety lies in his hands. So when he's also and of course, and his brother Salim. So when he's appointing the vice president, it has to be without any doubt that in the event of worst case scenario, the same trust and fears can be addressed by who is likely to succeed him in the event of the worst case scenario. Meaning he may have a very trusted by his power center vice president. Then when it comes to other ministries, I want to believe that it's going to be a young cabinet. Not of course 18 years, but young in terms of energy, in terms of age. So these 70s plus are going to be very few. 70s plus are going to be very few. I see his cabinet as a cabinet of an average age of 45, 30 to ceiling of 65, and selected a few big-headed men like Otafire, who also have an MOU to die ministers, very few of them. But by and large, 85% also of his cabinet is going to be a young cabinet, which he would think that it may carry on in this country even after, in the event rather, of the worst case scenario. Yeah, I think that's what I can say for now. Most of them, which also is likely pro-MK people who are likely to have
the Honorable Kabanda team.
Who knows, yeah, most of them. And this also brings us to that anticipation of like, okay, maybe that's one way or the other of grooming or preparing his, preparing the PLU to also take power. Maybe they want them to get experience. So we may have non-experienced people, young people coming on board. And I won't be surprised if they indeed make 80% also of his. And of course, when it comes to all these political, I call them political off-layers, those old men and women who have lost, he's going to even extend more of his advisors. Presidential advisor on my dressing, presidential advisor on my convoy, presidential advisor on Jazz with the Jajja, presidential advisor on Facebook, to mention about that. So those political off-layers will be presidential advisors. Okay. That's what I think.
Your last remarks to our viewer who has watched The Mighty Drive.
It is our viewers out there, it is to ask you to pick sense from what I've said and drop the trash, which I always try my best to limit the trash, if any. So, but also thank you for keeping it digital and sparing your time to love your country. I hope that you even love it more you love your country more by speaking against any form of injustices. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tumuhimbise for being part of this mighty drive. We have been blessed to have you. Thank you for sharing with us. I've been Kenneth Rumire to present you the Mighty Drive show with Mr. Alibawa Ali on camera, executive producer Jeremiah in production, and Mukosea Anthony, not forgetting Alvin Lubega. Thank you so much. Catch you some other time.